It's been approximately 8 months since my last actual upload. Besides that shitty little thing I uploaded a little while ago. I know it seems like I may have abandoned this channel and my immense fan base, but no. All this time, I've been prepping, I've been researching, I've been investigating, because I've come across something so dangerous, so unbelievable, that I cannot help but expose it. Today, we will be discussing Goblin Theory. Alright, before we get started, there's a couple things I gotta get out of the way. A, my voice is gonna be scuffed for this entire video. I'm sorry, but I'm stupid, and I really don't know too much about mics, or what kind is good, or setting them up. So, if you're listening to this, bunker down and get scuffed with me. And second of all, there's some vocab we gotta go over first, before we get started into the main theory. Now, you might be wondering from my past slide, what the fuck is a Groblinoid? Well, I got you covered. A Groblinoid, as I define it, is a mythical entity of humanoid nature, but possessing uncanny traits such as odd skin tones, excessive hair, lack thereof, tusks, tails, other shit. I wrote it down. You're reading it right now. Now, we're going to go on to the types of Groblinoids. Now, this gets kind of messy, and there's a lot, so bear with me. But the main ones being goblins, orcs, trolls, ogres, gnomes, various other mythical entities like pukwudgies, some types of elves, gremlins, and I like to group a lot into just miscellaneous. So, you're going to see some characters like Dobby from Harry Potter, the sexy little freak from Lord of the Rings, some weird shit from kids' movies, maybe some stuff from cartoons, like, I don't know, you're looking at the pictures now, you make it up in your mind. Okay, so, these are all very different kinds of creatures, but they're also share similarities, like such as their skin tone, their general kind of look. Like an ogre looks very similar to an orc, or a goblin, or some types of trolls. So I just like to group them all together in a term I call Groblinoids. So, I don't remember how or why I came up with it, but it's just something I use in my vocabulary while I talk about these entities. And you're going to hear me say it a lot. You might also hear me throw around the term groblophobic, which, as you can determine, would mean a hatred or fear of Groblinoids. So, with that being settled, let's start into the main beef of the theory. Alright, this is my hypothesis. Groblinoids have been, and continue to be, a major influence on human culture, history, and politics. But their history has been covered up by a society of elite Groblinoid individuals who seek control of every facet of human existence in retaliation for the war. Which, the war is something we will cover later on. It is very important, very big, and it needs its whole dedicated section. I just can't do it justice at the moment. I have to really dig into that. It's a lot. Okay, now I know you're thinking this is fucking crazy. This sounds like this fucking lazy. First of all, you made up a theory, and it's just reptilian theory, but with goblins. Which, no, first of all, this isn't a theory, this is the truth. I have unsurmountable fucking evidence that I've gathered, that I've risked my life for, that I've had friends die over. Okay? This is fucking real. Fucking grow up. Act like it. Know it. And first of all, fucking reptilian theory is fucking stupid. It's really fucking stupid. Like, I'm supposed to believe that somehow this fucking alien race that just somehow are like reptiles, or related to reptiles, just come to Earth and they have either shape-shifting abilities or stupid fucking masks. Like, no, that's just fucking unbelievable. Their fucking speech patterns wouldn't even be able to do human languages, because that's like how lizard mouths work. They just couldn't make those noises. They couldn't formulate human words, and it's just so fucking stupid. And it's just taking away from the truth of it, and it's to the point where I'm pretty sure the fucking Groblinoids made it up. First of all, as a joke to see how dumb fucking humanity is, and we fucking fell for it, because people out there fucking think reptiles rule the earth, when it's not fucking reptiles, it's goblins, and it's ogres, and it's orcs, and it's trolls, and it's giants, and it's gnomes, and it's gremlins, and it's all these other things, and not fucking reptiles. And, like, Groblinoids, like, they have, like, the fucking human mouth structure, so they can do words, so it's obviously them hiding in human masks or makeup, and not fucking reptiles. It's just so fucking stupid. Like, how dumb do you have to be to actually believe that? That's fucking stupid. That's so fucking dumb. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. It's so fucking stupid. I fucking hate it. I'm so fucking done. I'm done. These fucking idiots. Fucking revealing theory. I'm fucking done. I'm done. It's so fucking stupid. Fucking Jesus. Oh, Jesus Christ. Sorry, Dobby. Alright, now that we got the hypothesis out of the way, bunker down, grab yourself a glass of water, because you're about to take the fucking goblin pill. So the two most common arguments against the existence of Groblinoids would be the lack of fossil evidence and evolutionary ancestors. Now, while these are very good arguments to the point where it convinces many people against their existence, I have some answers that will help explain these gaps in my theory. Now, I don't have concrete proof on them, but I'm fairly confident in my theory. So, A, about the lack of fossils. I think it's kind of an obvious conclusion to come to, that the reason we don't find fossils of these Groblinoids, which we have in the past, but that we don't find them commonly as you find like human remains, is because they are specifically hidden by the Groblinoids, where they're put in secret tombs, secret burial sites, or most likely just cremated to the point where there's just no evidence left, just, like dust and dirt. And, I have a very interesting theory as to the evolutionary origins of Groblinoids, and one we are about to get into. So buckle down, and let's talk about Homo Floresiensis. For those of you who are unaware, Homo Floresiensis, also known as the real-life hobbit, was an ancient species of human whose remains were discovered on the Isle of Flores in 2003. The remains that were found, the individual was estimated to be up to 3'6" and weighed about 66 pounds, and all members of this human group were estimated to be around that size. Now, what's really interesting and why I'm bringing this up is because I believe that Homo Floresiensis is an evolutionary ancestor of some of the Groblinoids we have today. And you can see the similarities with their stature, especially, as you look at it and you can see how they're described like real-life hobbits, like they were hobbits, and other species that they could have evolved into, such as goblins, gremlins, even gnomes perhaps. But I know it does leave out a lot of the larger Groblinoids, such as orcs, ogres, trolls, giants. But what we'll get into later is another evolutionary ancestor for them. Now, some other facts about Homo Floresiensis was the fossils date between 100,000 and 60,000 years ago, but tools found that are believed to be used by them date to 190,000 to 50,000 years old. It is believed that the diminutive stature and the small brain of Homo Floresiensis resulted from island dwarfism, and, as you can imagine, the evolutionary process resulted from long-term isolation. Now, something interesting about these little 3-foot chads is that they used to hunt pygmy elephants for food, and they would also have to fight off giant stork things and also Komodo dragons. But to them, Komodo dragons were just regular dragons because they were so small. So these are pretty fucking cool guys. They did a lot of cool shit back in their day. And there's some still unanswered questions, such as which hominum species made the millionaire sold tools. on the island. I fucked that up, but I'm 2 minutes in, so I'm not going to re-record that, because I've done this like 10 times over the past 3 weeks. They also don't know how these early humans managed to get to the island, which I have an explanation for that I'll get into a little later. Like a lot later, actually. I'll cover that with a different topic. And they also don't know if they had like any sort of language or culture, which they probably did. And they also another question they have is if a volcanic eruption on the island floors resulted in them going extinct. But as of my theory goes, then that's obviously not true. And so far, no DNA has been retrieved from the bones of Homo Floresiensis. Now, this is very intriguing as it kind of rolls into what my past theory about that, why we don't have remains of the Groblinids, that fits in very well into there, as the Groblinoid elite would want to hide the DNA evidence, try to minimize their existence to the world. So, I mean, it's all looking good for me. This just keeps on coming out on top and on top and on top for me. And just one thing I like being right. So as I stated before, I had another possible evolutionary origin, specifically for the larger Groblinoids, such as, like, you know, your ogres, your giants. I've said it a million times, you know what I'm talking about. And for those of you familiar with Greek history, you might know that I'm referring to the ancient Cyclops that lived in the ancient Aegean Islands. Now, what's interesting about these guys is I was not prepared to record this. I forgot to bring up my little Google document. So give me 1 sec while I do that, and you can listen to some, I don't know, I'll just play a random song. You can listen to that. Alright, I'm back. I got my little notes ready. And so what I was talking about before, those of you familiar with Greek history, you would know that what I'm talking about is the Cyclops. And so now society would have us believe that Cyclops were never real and were just a mythological creature made up by the ancient Greeks, which really kind of offends me, because it takes my ancestors and it puts them in a light of, like, light-hearted, like, children's story makers when they were, like, just documenting reality and life, and all the stuff that actually happened is just, like, just mythology. It's, like, fake. People are, like, these fucking Anglos telling us that we were making it up. Like, it really does piss me off. But anyways, I mean, society, this is nothing new. Society has always been against us. So, so the Cyclops, who used to live on the ancient islands of the Aegean and Mediterranean in general, way back in the day, I believe that they are the evolutionary origin to more modern Groblinoids, such as, like, what I've stated before. You know what I'm not going to say it again, but you know what I'm saying. Much like how Homo Floresiensis was the evolutionary origin of the smaller variations of Groblinoids. And there is like fossil evidence proof of Cyclops existing. As you may have heard, their skulls have been excavated on many Aegean islands. I'll include some pictures in the video. And this brings up another kind of contention, or I guess debunking, quote-unquote, of my theory. Now, society tells us that these aren't skulls of Cyclops or giants, that these are skulls of ancient elephants and mammoths that lived on these islands way a long time ago, which a lot of society has taken up to be the truth. Which I find that, like, way harder to believe and, like, way more out there. Like elephants in Greece? Mammoths in Greece? Like, the fuck? How would they even get to these islands? They can't swim. They would fucking sink. They're too heavy. Like, I don't get how they expect us to believe that, like, fucking mammoths swam out to these islands and then lived there long enough where some of them evolved into, like, elephants? And if so, then why aren't they there anymore? Like, we didn't hunt them to extinction. They're too big. They would have overpowered us. So that I really don't get. That they just expect us to believe mammoths swam over from Africa and elephants and shit. So that's stupid. And they have all these fake diagrams, like you'll see below. And all these different species. Like, I think they made up one species specifically for Cyprus, and then another for Crete, and then, like, Sicily. And it's such a stupid fucking thing. It's kind of like reptilian theory that I brought up earlier, where it's just so fucking stupid, and it's insane that humans actually believe this. Fucking elephants in Greece, like, jeez. Get a load of that shit. Ugh, fuck. Now, some other things I want to bring up is something that kind of is a big talking point in the when I say Groblinoid community, I don't mean the community of Groblinoids, I mean the community of people invested in learning about them and stopping them. So, one of the biggest talking points in this community is real-life Cyclops, which I'll put some pictures down below. Some people believe that they are genetically related to actual ancient Cyclops and are therefore a form of Groblinoid. I don't take such a stance because I think it's just a coincidental genetic disorder that is extremely rare. And at the end of the day, these are still people, and they don't have lineages of Groblinoids. Like, if you look at their family photos, I mean, sure, they could be in disguise or whatever, but Cyclops is evolved into ogres and shit a long ass time ago. So it'd be weird that this one trait just happens to pop up in humans every now and then. So I think it's just coincidental. I know I don't have much evidence backing that up, but I just I don't know. I've met some Cyclopses. I've met some Cyclops women, and they seemed human enough to me. I don't get what all the hatred is about. They're not part of the elite. I don't think, at least. Ah, fuck. What the fuck am I talking about? Ah, Jesus. It's been a while since I actually went outside and did something. I've kind of just been holed up. Even before the pandemic and shit, I've just kind of been kind of holed up in my room. Before I started to make this video and kind of, I guess, expose the Groblinoid elite, I would just play Red Dead and shit, and just watch I don't know, shitty movies on Amazon Prime. And I don't know, because I'm sitting here alone on my laptop talking to myself about Groblinoids, and maybe I just kind of hyped this up a little bit in my head, just a little bit. So I don't know. I think I just need to go for a walk. That's what I'll do. I think I'm gonna go for a walk.
Alright, I just need to get all this fucking goblin shit off my mind. It's been a while since I went on a fucking walk. I think I'm starting to get myself all worked up about this. Might not be as bad as I've been saying. I don't know, though. Been kind of cooped up a lot lately. Wait, what the fuck is that? The fuck? What is that? What? Is that is that a dead animal? What the fuck is that? The hell? What the hell? Monkey?
There are a few other things I wanted to discuss in the evolutionary origin section. The first thing is some other kind of theories I have regarding to how they evolved and what they are, such as I believe their skin tones typically especially like the greenish ones, are a result of a form of camouflage to hide in like the shrubbery and the forest, to kind of disguise themselves in with the leaves and the bushes. Another thing I'm kind of curious about is where is like burrows, like did they live in burrows, like because some groblinoids live in kind of underground tombs or burrows or layers. So I wonder if that's another thing to kind of like for them to help hide. And there's one variation of groblinoid I haven't discussed yet, and it is the only one that is recognized by the wider community, but it is not seen as a form of groblinoid. And now what I'm talking about is, of course, the Goblin Shark, or what I like to class as the mergoblin, similar to a mermaid, but, a goblin. So I believe these quote-unquote Goblin Sharks are an offshoot of the Goblin branch of Groblinoids that evolved over time to live in the water and, thrive in the water. And I believe kind of as they evolved to become more water-like creatures, they lost more of their kind of brain function, becoming less and less sentient creatures, which is why the Groblinoids don't really care if we know about them, because we just group them in with sharks anyway, because they kind of look like sharks, even though they much more resemble goblins. So that's kind of dumb, but it's something I feel like is worth mentioning, because it's one Groblinoid that is actually studied by humans. And so it's important to bring up nonetheless. Now we're going to be moving on to where Groblinoids start showing up in human recordings, in historical recordings, or recordings through mythological stories or religious beliefs. So the next large chunk of this video is going to be explaining all the different instances of Groblinoids throughout human history and culture.
It's okay, monkey. I found you. You're safe now.
Alright, so now I kind of want to get into some accounts of Groblinoids throughout recorded human history. So we're going to start with what would be, I guess, the smallest section, which is Greek/Egyptian Groblinoids. Now, as I've already stated about the Cyclops and such, being the main example of Groblinoids in ancient Greece/Egypt and Rome, and I won't talk about them since I just did a whole big section on them. But I do want to state that the only other Groblinoid type that pops up are giants, which is pretty common throughout humanity. Giants were a pretty common sight to behold back then. So I do want to acknowledge there are many other creatures referenced throughout these historical accounts that I wouldn't class as Groblinoids, but maybe were some other types of odd creatures or weird representations of other Groblinoids. But as far as ancient Greece, Egypt, and Rome are concerned, there are not that many ancient Groblinoids. But as far as Abrahamic goes, go a little more east into the Levant and Middle East, there are a few things in the Abrahamic kind of accounts that I do want to bring up, such as Nephilims, which are said to be ancient kind of giants, or ogres, or some sort of thing. It's very kind of mysterious, and it's something the Catholic Church has done a lot to cover up, but they're definitely of some sort of Groblinoid nature. Along a similar line are golems. Now, golems themselves aren't Groblinoids, but how they're often depicted in ways that they could be interpretations of ogres, ancient Lebanese or whatever, Syrian ogres. There are also jinn from the Quran and Islamic, specifically Islamic kind of account of jinn, also known as genies. And I believe genies are kind of a fantasization of goblins to kind of make them a little more mystical. Because, so genies, like, they grant wishes, but, it's a monkey's paw. So you wish for something, but something gets taken in return. You get kind of tricked. And, goblins are very tricky beings. They trick lots of people. Lots of other types of groblinoids, such as puckwudgies and leprechauns, will trick people. So I think it could just be a artistic way to represent that personality that these types of groblinoids often have. There are also ghouls. Ghouls is just kind of a general term for creepy little things, although ghouls often are depicted as green and such. And also, I'd like to discuss demons. Now, demons, obviously in the Abrahamic mythos, are the devil's minions. But I've always wondered if maybe the demons are supposed to represent the groblinoids as some sort of evil force to oppose humanity. That's something, I feel like is worth putting out there, and I feel like could be an origin for demons in the Bible. Maybe not the biblical hell minions, but something similar and along those lines. Now, I was surprised when researching Norse Groblinoids that there weren't that many. I could only find elves. There are a couple types of trolls. They group kind of trolls and gnomes together and just under trolls, which is kind of odd. I mean, they're very different looking. Trolls they're more kind of bulky and hairy, while fucking gnomes are short and they have pointy hats. So I'm confused why they decided to group them together. And then, of course, they're frost giants. And I thought it was odd that they don't have other varieties, because, often when you think of groblinoids, you think of, Norse mythology or, Denmark. So I was kind of thrown off by that. But, yeah. But, look through. I mean, the Scandinavia was definitely a large area for groblinoids back in the day. You had elvish kingdoms, you had troll warrens and troll caves, and then the realm of the frost giants. All were groblinoid kind of areas that the ancient Vikings had to deal with. So if you get into groblinoid studies, you definitely spend a decent amount of time in Scandinavia. But to my surprise, they are not as important to groblinoid culture and groblinoids as Celtic lands. And through my research, I realized that the Celtic cultures have more groblinoids than any other culture on this earth. Now, for those of you who are unaware, the Celtic people are the people of Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Cornwall, Brittany, which is in France, and the Isle of Man, which is between Ireland and the United Kingdom, the UK. And they used to inhabit much more, the entirety of the British Isles and Western Europe, but they slowly got pushed back to where they are now, kind of over time through wars, mostly by Roman and Germanic peoples. And they have very large kind of collection of groblinoids. I'm going to go through and kind of name off the most important ones, and some ones I found that were kind of more interesting. Yeah, so I'll circle around back to the Celtic ones, because that's going to take a lot of time to cover. So I'll just kind of quickly cover English groblinoids. England is kind of where we get the terms goblin and hobgoblin. Also, it's kind of debated where the term ogre comes from, but one of the origins is English. And we also get gremlins, the name gremlins, from England. And there's an interesting legend of the Penhill giant, which you should probably look into if you're interested. It's very interesting. As for East Asia, there's not many examples of groblinoids. I was originally going to divide up into different regions, like China, Japan, Korea, Mongolia, but I could only find a handful, mostly from Japan. And I'm going to two into deaths because the Japanese equivalents were very rare, and it seems that the ancient Japanese, Korean, and Chinese peoples didn't have to deal with them very often, at least not directly, and they don't have very many accounts. So I'll just kind of list off some names that you can look into yourself if you're from these regions, or if you want to look out for what Groblinoids are kind of responsible for your oppression, or if you just want to research East Asian Groblinoids in general. So we've got Omonjaku, Mikoshi Niyudo, Yokai, which you probably have heard Yokai before, Oni, and Yosei, who are all from Japan. And then Dokkabe, Kabi from Korea. That one's kind of hard. It's Dokkaebi. And that's a Korean Groblinoid. So if you're interested in those, I definitely would kind of do your own research on those. I would cover it here, but I mean, I've only got so much time before the Groblinoid elites come for me. I mean, I'm looking out my window right now. I mean, I don't see anything at the moment, but they're out there. They're watching me. I know it. Sometimes they'll disguise themselves as my neighbors, or my family, or like mailmen, or pizza delivery guys. But I know, and I scare them off. They're too scared to confront me now. They know what I'm capable of. Anyways, and then before we get to the Celts, I just quickly want to discover Native American Groblinoids. And most of the examples I could find are for North America. There's the Yeshuari, the Nimmer Rigar. There's the Little People of Prayer Mountains, who are who I believe are goblins that have settled North America. They're the Genu and the Dozavits, Dzoavits. They're also interesting. Definitely look into them yourselves. They're complicated. And then, of course, a local one for me, the Pukwudgie, who inhabit Wampanoag lands, which is southeastern Massachusetts, Cape Cod, and then that region. Like Cape Cod, the South... You're probably not from Massachusetts, so you wouldn't know, but southeastern Massachusetts, which is kind of the area I'm living in. So I have to keep my eyes out for Pukwudgies in particular. And they're very interesting. Pukwudgies are very similar to the European goblins in that they are small tricksters. So back in the day, they would lure Wampanoag people into traps off cliffs and just trick them in inconvenient and dickish ways. Now, these are just a handful of examples from around the world. Trust me, if I put a lot of time into researching just these ones, and getting examples of historical Groblinoids, I guarantee you, if I put another 2 days into this, I could find triple the amount. And you could find even more. You just gotta look in there, you gotta dive deep, and you have to not be scared of what people will think of you. Because if I was scared what people thought of me for dedicating my life to this, to finding the truth, and to protecting the human race from the Groblinoid menace, I would have quit a long time ago. Unfortunately, a lot of these sheeple out there, they give in to the Groblinoid lies and the Groblinoid propaganda. They don't understand that they're being tricked. And it's my duty to save them, whether they want me to or not. And it's your duty too. If you're a true hero, you must help me in this cause. You must save humanity from these monsters, these fucking monsters. And you can't give in. Trust me, you cannot give in. Okay, now to move on to the Celtic Groblinoids, and what I may consider the Groblinoid homeland. So I believe the Celtic cultures were a hotspot for Groblinoid activity, just from the sheer amount of Groblinoids I could find from their cultures. And so I kind of have come to the conclusion that because there are so many Groblinoids from these areas and from these stories, that these must be where a lot of Groblinoids at least hide out. Maybe not originated from, because that would kind of conflict with my previous theories. But I think we could find their lairs in the Celtic regions of the world, like Scotland and Ireland and such. So, to get into the Groblinoids from the Celtic cultures that I found, the most obvious one, obviously, being the leprechaun. Now, you can definitely tell, like, leprechaun, short stature, they're tricksters. Usually they're depicted with, like, kind of human white skin tones. Sometimes they're depicted greenish, like in the leprechaun movies. And then there's the variant of a leprechaun that is not very talked about, and that I've only discovered recently. The Far Darig. Now, the Far Darig is a leprechaun that dresses in red instead of green, and is far more malevolent. Still a trickster, but just like, instead of tricking you out of money, it'll trick you out of your life and shit like that. There's also the changeling, which kind of fits into here. And changelings would disguise themselves as people and replace human children. So it kind of fits into like kind of what Groblinoids are doing today, disguising themselves as humans. Now, I believe that the past three I just discussed, the leprechaun, Far Darig, and changelings, are all actually just goblins, but just different accounts of goblins that have been kind of altered throughout time to give more humanish features. And then, another big kind of example I found are the Daoni Mathi, which are fairies, and then also pixies. Now, I haven't discussed or brought up fairies or pixies at all, but they're kind of like on the line where they could be considered a Groblinoid or not. It also depends on like how they're depicted, but they definitely tie in somewhat. And there's a lot of accounts from Celtic lands of fairies and pixies, and there's a bunch of movies about them too. Remember this one, where like they had like guns and they were going to war with each other. It was weird. I don't remember what that movie was. And then there's also just a huge list of just other random Groblinoids, like the Bagul Naz, the Grok, the Corrigan, the Yan Gan Eton, the Knocker, the Bugani. I think I said that right, I'm not sure. The Fakan, the Fenodri, Fenodiri, the Bakon, the Bruni, the Dooney, the Peck. There's the Redcap, the Tro, and the Kobli now, which it's kind of hard to say just with me, or hard to imagine it was just me talking. But I made out like a whole list of every culture in the Groblinoids. The Celtics are twice the size of any other list. Like, I'm trying to think. The second biggest is Native American. Native American is mostly just kind of goblin-esque Groblinoids. So, I just found it odd, because when I think Groblinoids, I think Norse, or I think, like, Germanic, but I don't think Celtic. So it was just kind of a shock to me to find, like, all these different ones from Celtic cultures. And it was, like, I spent, like, 40 minutes going through them all, like, just through different, like Wikipedias or websites. And, like, because you're going through, and because there's so many different Celtic cultures, like, I started with Irish, because that's typically the most known one. When you think Celtic, you think Irish. And then after that, Scotland, and then Wales, and then Cornwall, and then you get into the more obscure Celtic areas like Brittany, and then the Isle of Man, or Manx, which I never realized was Celtic. And then there's Galicia in Spain, which I thought it was just a coincidence because Galicia sounds similar to Gaelic. But apparently they are Celtic, but Galicia usually doesn't get grouped in with a lot of the other Celtic countries. And maybe it's just because they're so far removed from the other ones, or like a language thing. I'm not sure. But it's just odd, because the Celts have been pushed back to these areas since like the times shortly after the Romans, like with the Visigoth, like those types of kingdoms, all either like merging with Roman cultures or getting pushed out. So maybe the Groblinoids were there before the Celts, and the Celts moved in. So Groblinoids kind of dug down there, and then after the war, maybe that's just where a bunch of Groblinoids were relocated to. So, I guess this kind of wraps up the different historical accounts, but this Celtic Groblinoid stuff definitely kind of turned a new leaf for me. Okay. Now to move on to... Sorry, I gotta look at my little sheet here. Where is it? Oh, fuck this. Alright, I gotta check this real quick. Alright, I had some weird technical difficulties there. But, moving on to their presence in pop culture today. Now, this is where we see a lot of the kind of examples of Groblinoids that we know and that we think of. Similar to like the pictures you saw in the beginning of this video. So, a prime example of where you can find Groblinoids in pop culture is fantasy, like fantasy genre, novels, comics, video games, movies, television series. Think Lord of the Rings, think Elder Scrolls, think Game of Thrones. And you see a lot of the prime examples, such as orcs, ogres, trolls, gnome. Actually, you don't really see gnomes, never mind. Goblins. Giants. You see a lot of giants. And I feel like the result of there being so many Groblinoids in pop culture is a mix of two things. One is because pop culture is like an ever-evolving thing that originates in ancient mythologies or ancient stories, such as tying into historical accounts. So like you have stuff from ancient Greece and Egypt that is still in pop culture, and you have stuff in pop culture that has evolved from that. The same with the different creatures and Groblinoids. And not just that for like ancient Egyptian, but for anything I covered. Native American, East Asian, Germanic, Norse, especially Norse, because Norse is what a lot of fantasy stuff really takes influence from. You also see him in a lot of movies that aren't like non-fantasy. We're talking now. So like the movie Trolls 2 is a great example. You have a wonderful film called Goblin 2020. Although I do think it has a problematic depiction of goblins as spoilers. Sorry to spoil it for you, but the goblin is in the end is a good guy, which is not true in reality. You also have Shrek. How could I forget Shrek? Probably one of the most influential films of all history, especially for my generation. Now this actually ties into the second theory of why Groblinoids are so present in pop culture, which is that the Groblinoid elite are using them as sort of propaganda, and Shrek is the best example of that. What better way to kind of improve the sheeple's view of Groblinoids than to make a kid-friendly, highly popular Groblinoid movie starring a Groblinoid being Shrek? And now when people see Groblinoids in media and stuff, they no longer react with fear and hatred and anger like they used to. Shrek has made people think of Groblinoids in a warm and a comedic manner, which has severely weakened us to the influence of Groblinoids, because we just see them as more of a joke, which helps them because we no longer see them as threats. Even though most humans don't acknowledge their existence on a subconscious level, they're more vulnerable to them now. And, I loved Shrek growing up. I really did. I really identified with Shrek. But just ever since I got Goblin pilled, it's just every time I see Shrek or a scene or a line, I just get filled with anger and hatred. Because I know what it is now. I've been awakened to what it is. And it's propaganda. And I'm one of the few that have broken free from its influence, and it's like watching your childhood hero shoot somebody. It's horrible, but it's necessary for the human race's future existence. But there are some more, what's the word? I guess good depictions of Groblinoids in media. I've never seen it, but there's an anime called Goblin Slayer or something like that. No, I don't know what it's about. I've never seen it, but just from the title, I can tell that it already kind of is about taking down the Groblinoid elite. There's Lord of the Rings with the Urukai or whatever, the orcs, showing them as evil. There's that. Unfortunately, Elder Scrolls has more positive depictions of Groblinoids. There's the orcs, but the orcs are more sympathetic in there. And then goblins, even though they even depict goblins as sympathetic. And it's kind of annoying. They don't depict them as the villains, really. Even though you fight and kill them, they're treated as, just minding their own business, which is kind of annoying. You also have, I don't know. I do know, but I can't think of it at the moment. My mind's being clouded. It's very annoying. But I guess we'll just sum it all up. So just summary. Groblinoids use pop culture media and the presence of Groblinoids in that media to influence and mold the people, and the children especially, and none worked better than Shrek. Shrek is the reason that the Groblinoids have a firm grasp on this generation, and it is horrific. Shrek is a great segue into my next point, which is the Groblinoids' influence on humanity. And I've already kind of pretty much covered it throughout the whole video, but just to kind of get it all in a clear, sentence. So basically, the Groblinoids control every aspect of our life, from currency to the economy, wars, poverty, hunger, disease, technological advancement, genocides, all this stuff, including every horrific thing you can possibly imagine. Just think, just all the horrors in life that you can't just understand why it happens. It's because of them. And they do this through one, propaganda and cultural kind of insemination. Two, they are the elites puppeteering all the world governments and organizations and businesses. And they even are some of the world's most powerful figures, but just in disguise. So think of people like the Queen of England, the Pope, the President of the United States, the fucking Prince of Luxembourg, the Dalai Lama, the Emperor of Japan, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Craig Boy Mental, all of them. They're all Groblinoids in disguise. I'm not sure what kind of Groblinoids they are, but my guess would be that it depends kind of on their build and size. So, like, people that are, like, shorter would be, like, goblins. People that are taller that are more average human size, probably be, like, more orcs. Or tall goblins, if those exist. And they just control everything, and it's hard to kind of visualize this. Like, I know I said that earlier, but it really is, like, even with the images I'm showing accompanying whatever that word is called, accompanying my my audio, and it's not going to be enough. So I've actually went out of my way to create a diagram that I am going to kind of go and show you right now.
Alright, now this is what I was talking about, okay? As you can clearly see, we got the Groblinoids here. And I've kind of mapped out, so we have how much do we actually control, who's in charge, the Queen, the Pope, where are they, what can we do, and then all the way over here with, this is kind of where we are now in the video, is why do they hate us, what happened. Now, Monkey, I know I've gone over this with you many times, but, can you tell me what happened? Right, you're exactly right. The war is what happened. Now, Monkey, do you know what the war is? Because I know what the war is.
Hate it. After all this time, we have gotten to the war. The very reason the Groblinoids are doing this to us. The thing that started this all. The spark. Now, the war was something that happened very long ago. And it is an event that is recorded in humanity. We know it as the Bronze Age collapse. An era where 1,000-year-old empires fell in the span of a human lifetime. The Mycenaeans, the Hittites, and of course, the Egyptians. Now, you're thinking that the war was our human kingdoms being sacked by Groblinoid invaders, but it is very much the difference. You see, before humans came to these lands along the Mediterranean, they were a Groblinoid's paradise. The Mycenaeans were goblins. The Hittites were goblins. The Egyptians were goblins. And they had wealthy, prosperous kingdoms. And one day, some troubles erupted. Nothing they couldn't handle. But it was the baddest that they'd had in a while. And so, it only made matters worse when humans rode in on their galleys and raided their shores, their cities, their towns, their granaries, their armories, pillaging, taking, stealing all they could fit on their boats. After decades of this, the Mycenaeans, Egyptians, and Hittites collapsed. The Groblinoid leaders and citizens had no choice but to flee to the mountains, to flee further inland, away from the coast, away from the humans. You see, that is why they are in their burrows and their caves and their hidden kingdoms, was to hide from us. They knew they couldn't face us head on. They had already failed. Which is why they decided to take a more subtle approach. That is why we have the Groblinoids in the shadows, puppeteering everything. They accumulated their wealth and their intelligence to the point where they could infiltrate, to where they could bribe and command. And once they got in, they refused to leave. And they led humanity down a trail a trail to become little puppets to the Groblinoids. And that is where we have been for thousands of years, under the heel of these Groblinoids. That is why they hate us, why they persecute us and oppress us. Now, what we did to them was wrong and evil. But what they've done to us is 10 times more heinous. The amount of deaths as a result of the Groblinoids are in the billions, the trillions even. Think about it. Every war, every genocide, every great fucking hunger for the past 1,000 years. Result of the Groblinoids. The great famines, the Holocaust, world wars, terrorism, the Groblinoids. All because we sacked a few of their cities 5,000 years ago. That is why they are after us. And I propose, no, I demand that it is our time to go after them. You see, I've had a revelation. I've seen what needs to be done. I need your help.
I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this, Monkey.
Come on, Voorhees. I've known you for a long time. I know the kind of strength you have. You can do this. You can push through until the end. You've got this, Voorhees. Come on. Come on.
I know, but this is different.
It's not different. It's all the same. It's about getting through to the end, and I know you can do it. You have the power. You're Voorhees the Greek.
You're right.
Yeah.
Someone needs to level the playing field.
Yes.
These
Make them pay.
fucking Groblinoids.
They must be pushed out of the way, and you're the only one who can do it.
You're right, Monkey.
Yes.
I know what I must do, Monkey.
Yes.
I know what I must do.
Yes.
I saw an issue so deep and vile that I had no choice but to end it. I tried to warn people, my loved ones, my friends, even the authorities, but they all laughed. I tried again and again and again to reason with them, but they never budged. I have come to realize that I am alone in this crusade. The world sits on a pool of gasoline just waiting to burst into glorious fire, and I shall be the spark that ignites the flames. What I am to do will be bloody and cruel, but it will be necessary. It will be a wake-up call to the people of this world, and I will finally not be alone.
got Marvin Gaye on the touchdown. Baby, this old town may be set in stone, but then give it up and get down. Go on and pass by the antiquities. I saw Athena statue and I swear she winked. I want you to know, babe, that we'll be taking it slow. Hold me close in the straight light, hand on your backside, bottle to your lips, and we're gonna have a good time. Oh, we'll die trying. Dealing paper flowers with the pockets full. You wear that olive branch, we go tripping past one forgotten soldier and a dozen more passed out on the train. I want you to know, babe, that it ain't under control, but it's cool in the autumn breeze, coffee between your teeth, just the kind of buzz you need to get you where you wanna be. Before we die trying. Oh baby, today is ours for now and on. Oh time the stars had us in mind. Today is ours for now and on. Old time the stars had us in mind. Today is ours for now and on. Old time the stars had us in mind. Today is ours for now and on. Old time the stars had us in mind.
3, 2, 1.
Because I can Photoshop myself in.